Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Strategoi video. Ryan here for day 3 of the Scourge of Ghyran updates. Today we'll be focusing on Flesh Eater Courts. I know that it's been a while since we've really had a lot of content, so it's taking a minute for the algorithm to pick back up that we exist. But I appreciate any of you guys commenting, liking, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. Set notifications on. That helps boost the signal, and hopefully this is the beginning of, like I've said before, a new era of us posting. As far as content, I'm going to be trying to do this every day. And then because I want to try to hit some stuff about worlds, preferably interviews, but also my personal recap, I'm going to try to squeeze those in as well. So we might even see 8 videos per week. Sorry, 5, probably 1 for each workday plus 1 from me. So that's 6 videos a week. Pretty excited about all that. But the first one I'll probably do is just my own take on worlds. Maybe I'll put some photos and some slides or something. I don't know. Let you guys see the general vibe of what my trip looked like. But also, we'll be doing some interviews with some captains, some players. And if someone really wants to jump on the channel and talk about their experience there, and we got to know each other a bit, hit me up and let me know. But anyway, in the meantime, let's just get on to some Flesh Eater Court stuff. Now, it's interesting because today we got 2 documents. We actually got the Flesh Eater Court stuff, as of course we're going to talk about, but we also got this document, which is good because we read something in the article about how these Scourge of Ghyran War Scrolls are going to be used. But I want to cover these real quick since I'm not going to cover them in depth in every single one. And Feck is also an army that, though I know a decent amount about, it's not one of my main armies, so it might be good to pad out the content here. So this is what GW has shared with us. This can be found in the downloads as well, and the recently added documents as well. So I'm just going to read it out loud and talk about it. So using the Scourge of Ghyran rules. The Scourge of Ghyran rules are a set of seasonal rules that include additional faction rules and alternative war scrolls for every faction. These rules are for use in battles that use the General's Handbook 25-26 Battle Pack, which of course means we can't start using them until we get it. That said, I'm particularly excited to start playing some of the Skaven stuff, so if I can find anyone that's willing to just go ahead and start playing those, that'd be great. I'd even be willing to use the worse of the 2 points values just to try those rules out if they think that's fairer. Anyway, Scourge of Ghyran War Scrolls. If you wish to use a Scourge of Ghyran War Scroll, every instance of that unit in your army must use that War Scroll. You cannot use the printed, i.e. Battle Tome or Faction Pack version of the War Scroll for one unit and the Scourge of Ghyran War Scroll for another. If you decide to use the Scourge of Ghyran version of a War Scroll, you do not have to use all other Scourge of Ghyran War Scrolls for your faction. So you can mix and match with different units, just not the same unit. In addition, other rules that interact with the printed version of that unit interact with the Scourge of Ghyran version 2. For example, a rule including regiment options that calls out a unit type by the name on its war scroll interacts with both the printed version of that unit and the Scourge of Ghyran version. They are synonymous in this regard. All right, clear. Scourge of Ghyran faction rules. The additional faction rules consist of a variety of battle formations, artifacts of power tables, heroic traits tables, special enhancement tables such as monstrous traits, which I'm pretty sure we still don't have in the game. If I'm not mistaken, the only real special trait that we've got thus far, special enhancement, unique enhancement, are the banners for Slaves to Darkness, but someone correct me if I'm wrong. Spell lores and prayer lores. So maybe they will be introducing monstrous traits soon. That'd be great. They mentioned that in 4th edition, but like in the lead up. But as far as I'm aware, we haven't seen anything like that. When picking your army's battle formation, you can pick one of the Scourge of Ghyran battle formations available to your faction instead of any others available to it. In other words, you can still only pick one battle formation for your army. If you pick from a Scourge of Ghyran Artifacts of Power or Heroic Traits table, you pick from that table instead of other such tables available to your faction, not in addition to. This is stated in the rules that accompany the relevant table. So I suppose if you had the choice to take 2 Heroic Traits or 2 Artifacts, which maybe a faction or 2 has, if I'm not mistaken, I think that still exists somewhere besides Sons of Behemoth. That means you have to, kind of like a spell lore, pick the table you're going to use and then pick from that one. Some of the Scourge of Ghyran enhancement tables are special enhancements unique to that faction. For example, monstrous traits. Okay, I guess we are getting them. This is an enhancement table available to your faction like any other. Therefore, you pick one enhancement from it for your army as per the Army Composition Rules 4.1. We hope that you enjoy using Scourge of Ghyran rules and that they add a fun new dimension to your faction. Great. I think that's clear. If you guys have any more questions over that, these rules or things that seem unanswered, put them in the comments below so that we can talk about them. Okay, so if we go back to the article, we've got another lore thing. We scroll down, we see some effect stuff, and then we see where we can download. Now, we're once again, like Skaven, getting two battle profiles. We're getting one, both for foot heroes. One for the Scourge of Ghyran, Abhorrant Ghoul King on foot. I think yeah, that makes sense. And then the Abhorrant Gore Warden, who's the guy with wings. Let's talk about what changed here. So the Abhorrant Ghoul King on foot is currently 120 points, evidently going to stay 120 points. But here's a big difference. Instead of being able to take 0 to 1 Flesh Eater Noble, which is what I call an italics hero, or you could call it a sub commander, whatever you want, but the kind of hero that can go in another hero's regiment, this guy can now take any amount of them, which is actually really cool. You could take a whole regiment of just heroes. Really neat. I don't know if we've seen that yet. And then he can take any Flesh Eater courts as per usual. And of course the base size is the same. Then if we go to the Scourge of Ghyran Abhorrant Gore Warden, this guy now costs 10 points more. Went up from 130 to 140 at least with the current points we've got, and can still take the same things in his regiment, namely 1 Flesh Eater Noble plus 0 to 1 Serfs, so 0 to 1 of both, either or, and then any Knights. And the base size stays the same. Okay, so let's take a look at those War Scrolls, as I like to do. We're starting with those guys. So let's start with the guy on the left, the Abhorrant Ghoul King. This is the guy on foot. 6-inch move, and now 5 health instead of 6, which is printed in the Battle Tome. So he lost a point of health. We're actually seeing him go down in quality, at least in that regard. 2 control, 5 up save, 6 up ward still. Now his melee weapons went from being Gory Talons and Fangs to Bloodstained Talons and Fangs, which has the exact same profile, except now it has +1 rend against heroes. I guess that's cool, but like that's not going to be a huge upgrade unless something on his War Scroll makes him really good at getting over to heroes real quick. We'll have to see. I haven't read this, by the way, so we're looking at it together. The keywords: Hero, Wizard 1, Infantry 6+ Ward, Death, Flesh Eater Courts, Abhorrent. That's all exactly the same. So let's talk about the rules that this guy used to have. He used to have an any combat phase ability and a your charge phase ability. So let's talk about those first. The any combat phase ability was pick an enemy hero in combat with this unit to be the target. For the rest of the turn, add 1 to the damage characteristic of this unit's melee weapons, but all of the unit's attacks must target that hero. So this is actually kind of interesting because I haven't read the new rules, but just seeing that that's gone means that the profile, even though our profile did gain +1 rend against hero, the damage went down. So, you know, depending on what you're trying to do, have like a smaller number of wounds have a better chance of going through, or having more damage go through when it does, then this can be seen as a lateral move, I suppose. But again, I have to look at the new rules. And then the your charge phase ability was, if this unit charged this phase, it is strike first for the rest of the turn, which is cool. He's not one of these heroes that brings another unit in or anything, so there's no combo there. I don't know if I was seeing a lot of these guys on the table because, you know, he is a wizard, and he is an abhorrent, which is a good keyword to have. But people back home, let me know if this guy was a popular take, as he currently is. Let's take a look at what's been changed, though. So we lose both of those rules, and we get 2 passive abilities. The first, the King's Court. Add 1 to the attack's characteristic of melee weapons used by other, so not him, friendly, non-monster, Flesh Eater Courts heroes, so not Usharon, not the guy on the big dragon, while they are wholly within 12 inches of this unit. In addition, add 1 to the attack's characteristic of this unit's melee weapons for each other friendly non-monster Flesh Eater Courts hero wholly within 12 inches of the unit to a max of 3. Now remember, this guy's the one that we just said could take a bunch of italics heroes with him, which means he really wants to bring these guys with him, and they create kind of like a hero hammer kind of thing. But he's still only 5 health and a 5 up save, 6 up ward, and he doesn't have strike first anymore. So, you know, I don't know. He's buffing all the other heroes, plus he's getting up to +3 attacks, so up to 8 attacks. So, I mean, that's cool. I would say that's better than getting +1 damage, but then you have to take those heroes. They have a points cost. We know that a lot of foot heroes, even though they might be good in combat, may or may not be great on the table for some other reason, you're paying often a premium price to get the extra buffs that come with them. So a lot of times you're not getting as much value as just taking like a chaff unit or something like ghouls or whatever. But we'll see. There was something else that occurred to me here. Oh yeah, keep in mind with everything that we're about to talk about, the Flesh Eater Courts is one of the 3 next armies that's slated to get a battle tome. Is that right? Or maybe they're the fourth one. In any case, we've got Nighthaunt, Idoneth, KO, Feck, and Korn coming up. Maybe they're the very last one, but in any case, that means that it, probably not right when the GHB comes out. It's probably going to be later in the year, but a lot of these rules are going to change. So, for example, when I'm thinking about non-monster Flesh Eater Quartz heroes, and I mentioned the Abhorrant Ghoul King on Royal Terrorgeist, that guy, because he got replaced in the Soulblight book that just came out. Granted, you can still use their version of that unit, the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, for a whole other year due to the extra Battle Tome supplement that they put out. That said, there's a really good chance since they were the same kit that guy's going away too. So who knows what we're going to see in the way of non-monster or even monster Flesh Eater Quartz heroes. But just keep that in mind with everything we're about to talk about, that they're going to get their own Battle Tome, but they made these rules probably with to work pretty well with the versions that we're going to have in the book. And you can also look at this as confirmation that these units are going to keep existing in the book because these are alternative versions of supposedly another unit that exists. So maybe that's a silver lining way of looking at this. That at least this is telling us what's going to stay in the book. Not that the Gore Warden was going anywhere because the Gore Warden's a newer unit, but maybe the Ghoul King would have in some way or shape or form. Anyway, the second passive ability here is Long Live the King. If this unit would be destroyed before removing it from play, friendly non-unique Flesh Eater Quartz units, so not just heroes, but just non-unique, holier than 12 of this unit become enraged until the start of your next turn. Melee weapons used by friendly enraged units have crit auto wound and score critical hits on unmodified hit rolls of 5+. Remember, this won't impact mounts, so your Morbeg Knights mounts won't get this, but the riders would. That seems pretty cool. So in a certain sense, you're sending this guy in to die because maybe you want him to die and get these buffs off. And I suppose I'd have to look and see if this guy counts as one of his own Italics heroes. Is he a Flesh Eater Noble himself? Let me check that out. I'm going to go look at the battle profiles, double check. The Abhorrant Ghoul King, I don't think so. So someone tell me if I'm wrong about that, but I don't think you can take a whole regiment of just like him plus another 4 of these guys if he's your general, or 3 otherwise. So I don't think you're doing that, but that'd be kind of interesting to kind of like have these suicide like kamikaze bomber dudes go in, try to do as many attacks with their retinue of lots of heroes around each other, and then when they die, you're guaranteeing that you're getting crit auto wounds off on some of your guys. Remember, crit auto wounds, if you haven't ever done the math on it, has the biggest impact on bad wound rolls. Why? Because what it's doing, if you roll a 6 on your hit roll, you skip the wound phase, right? It's kind of like the same effect that having crit mortals does with the rend, and of course wounds, but with the rend especially, because it's skipping an amazing save, right? And it would be also skipping a bad wound roll. But in this case, what you're doing is just skipping that next step. And so if you already have a wound roll of 2 or 3+, it's having less impact than if you had a wound roll of 5 or 6. In fact, mathematically, if your wound roll is 4+ and you get crit auto wound, it has the same difference as doing all out attack on a unit going from 3 to 2 or whatever it might be. It's adding the same amount of buff there. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of interesting. But let's take a look at the next guy. So what do I think of this dude, though? I mean, I think it depends on how it's going to work with bringing these other dudes. It sounds kind of memey to me, but maybe someone out there really thinks it's cool. And of course, in FEC, it is really nice to be able to take lots of heroes because they're all going to end up having the ability to get those delusion points. I forget what they're called off the top of my head, but getting those points racked up so that you've got lots of heroes to be bringing units back. Okay, the Abhorrant Gore Warden. So let's take a look at this war scroll. I took a quick look at it, and I don't think anything changed about the wheel. 12-inch move, 7 health, 2 control score, 5 up save, 6 up ward. Even the attacks profile is identical and has the same name. And then the keywords, if I scroll down there, I believe those are all the same. Hero, Wizard 1, Infantry, Fly, 6+ Ward, Death, Flesh Eater Quartz, and Abhorrant, so everything's the same. Like I said, he got 10 points more expensive, but kept all the same regiment options, so let's see why he got more expensive. His old rule was a Your Movement Phase ability, which is now gone. It had declare if this unit is not in combat, you can pick up to 2 friendly crit flares. So those are the flying elite guys, or Morbeg Knights, the cavalry units that are not in combat and are holier than 12 to be the targets. Remove this unit and the targets, if any, from the battlefield. Set this unit up again on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy units. Then set up each target holier than 12 and also more than 9 away from enemy units. And this counts as a core move, so you can't do it as well as running or moving or whatever, retreating. Okay? So no retreat and teleport. Cool teleport ability to bring flayers or Morbeg Knights along with, and then hope to get like a 9-inch charge or go steal an objective or whatever. It's very techy. It's the kind of thing I like. If I were playing Feck, I'd probably consider running him. But let's see what they changed it to. So we get passive ability. Effect. While this unit is within the combat range of a friendly Knights unit, and if I'm not mistaken, Knights is all 3, not just the cavalry, but also the Crypt Flayers and Crypt Horrors, so all 3 of the elite units. While this unit is within the combat range of a friendly Knights unit and has charged this turn, doesn't mean that unit has to have charged. This unit has a 5+ ward, so it gets +1 to its ward roll, and its gory talons and fangs have charged +1 damage. So implicitly he had charged anyway, so he's getting that +1 damage. So he's going up to 3 damage. He's more defensive and getting the damage. And maybe if you combined him with the other guy, to have him do some of that +1 attack action that we were just talking about, then maybe that's a thing. I'm looking right now to see if this guy can be taken as a what I call Italics hero. I don't think so. So he's also probably not any of the Abhorrants, but maybe I'm wrong. Someone let me know. I don't have their battle profiles in full form printed out here, but I do have the app open. So anyway, I guess you wouldn't be taking this guy in the other guy's regiment, but they're both Abhorrants, which is the better kind of hero, I guess, and they both are wizards, so that's pretty logical. That seems like a cool ability. So while he's within the combat range of a friendly Knights unit and has charged, so this doesn't mean if he was within the combat range before the charge, it means by the time you're checking to see if this is off, then he's getting that ward. So I'm trying to think about any exceptional situations here. So basically, he'd want to have either charged together with some Knights or to have charged into a unit that Knights were already engaged with. And then it gives him extra protection and extra damage. Yeah, seems all right. Yeah, interesting. Okay, and there's once per turn army, end of any turn. So it's like a rampage, but it's not officially a rampage. Swooping Descent. Effect. Remove this unit from the battlefield, then set it up again more than 9 inches from all enemy units, and either wholly within 6 of the edge of the battlefield or within 3 inches of an objective you do not control. So within 3 inches of an objective you do not control means on an objective marker if it's correctly printed, because the objective itself is the 40mm center, and then plus 3 inches is what we usually use as the objective marker. So he just has to land on the objective marker. So let's see. You can't do this with 2 guys because it's only once per turn army. End of enemy turn. I don't know if I said that correctly when I read it the first time. It's so only at the end of the enemy's turn, not your turn. And then you can get him out of combat. Oh, it doesn't even say he has to be in combat. It just says you can remove him from the battlefield, period. So regardless of where he is, and set it up again more than 9 inches from enemy units and either wholly than 6 of the battlefield. That's a pretty good rule. I think I still like the other teleport better. Granted, this guy could be teleported out of combat, which is nice, but it's only in your end of enemy turn. Interesting. That this guy went up 10 points kind of surprises me a little bit. The Feck players out there will have to tell me what they think, but I think personally I'd rather your movement phase teleport, bringing the other units with you, and landing anywhere you like, than this guy having to go to a board edge or 3 inches of an objective you control, so on an objective, and then also getting in return that charge ability where he has to line it up with some other stuff. I don't know. This kind of feels like a downgrade to me. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But obviously you could still use the other one, so there's nothing against that. It's just he went up 10 points, so I'm not 100% getting it. Someone in the chat let me know. But yeah, or in the comments, I should say. All right, let's look at the other rules. All right, so unlike Stormcast, we did get 2 formations again, so that's kind of fun. Let's take a look at what the well we don't have to look at all the formations they already have access to because that's going to take a minute. But let's take a look at what we get here. All right. So Impassioned Serfs, Overwhelming Hordes. This is in any combat phase, including your opponents, but it's a CP. It's a command ability. You have to blow a CP to do this. Pick a friendly Serfs unit that did not charge this turn and is not in is in combat to use this ability. Then pick an enemy unit in combat with that Serfs unit to be the target. So Serfs, by the way, are your non-hero foot dudes. So that's going to be like the guard and ghouls, and I'm trying to think if there's anyone else I'm missing on that. Oh, the what's it called? The Royal Beast Flayers. So the Crypt Guard, Crypt Ghouls, and Royal Beast Flayers, if I'm not mistaken. Those are going to be your serfs. It's basically your normal infantry kind of chaffy units. The target, so you pick a target for a CP, and that target cannot make pile-in moves for the rest of the turn. I have mixed feelings about this. It seems kind of steep for a CP. Personally, I think I'd almost rather... I mean, granted, you know it's going off, but you have to blow a CP. I don't know how CP-hungry FEC players tend to be, but there's a part of me that thinks I'd rather trade this for on a 2-up or 3-up free ability than for a CP. And of course, because it's a command ability, it's inherently only once per turn. You can't have every one of these units trying to do it because you can only use the same command ability once per phase. Yeah, I mean, not piling in is really strong in certain situations, but because of the 3-inch combat range that we currently have, it doesn't have a huge impact like it did in 3rd edition and before. I suppose if a unit just charged in and barely landed any of their units, this is a really big thing. Of course, you can pile in, and if you pile in first and bring in as many unit models in your kind of like horde unit as possible in, then you're implicitly bringing them closer to the rest of their stuff. I don't know. Someone let me know how strong they think this is. I have mixed feelings about it, but I could see it being really clutch in certain situations, but I could also see it being kind of a whatever, and maybe not really worth the CP. Let's talk about the other one, though. Questing Courtiers, the Blessing of the Chalice. Effect, friendly Flesh Eater Courts heroes have a 5+ ward if they have destroyed a unit this battle. Now, this kind of goes along with how much more killy they were kind of trying to make the 2 new versions of the heroes. But I just don't know if that's going to happen a lot. I mean, obviously for the big guy and dragon, but remember he might be gone. Maybe not right away in the GHB, but once the Battle Tome comes out, who knows? And then Usharon, but a lot of times Usharon players don't want him to get in right away because they're trying to protect him. I mean, he's got some great stuff going for him in combat, like giving people strike last. But a lot of times they're also a little protective of Usharon. And he's already got a 5+ ward, so that doesn't even matter, so never mind. And Nagash, who would also count as a Flesh Eater Courts hero, doesn't need it either. Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about this one too. Now, they get to keep it for the rest of the game, so that's pretty cool. If you can manage to squeeze out a unit with that hero, remember, they have to have destroyed, not just done damage to a unit that got destroyed, but they had to themselves have destroyed a unit. And, like, I don't know if you're a Cardinal dude or Gormain or someone like that really has it in them to finish off a unit to go up to a 5-up ward and double their ward potential. I kind of feel a little meh about these too, but to be fair, I think FEC's in a really good place right now anyway, and they've got a whole new Battle Tome coming, which may or may not bring a lot of changes. We'll have to see. At some point, GW is going to start, I think, probably making significant changes to the Battle Tomes in 4th edition, but it could be, of course, that they're just waiting to get all of them out, and then 5th edition is the big changes edition. But we'll see. Let me know what you think of these 2 new formations. Okay, so here we are. I spent a lot of time hemming and hawing over whether we're going to get monstrous traits, and here we are. Finally, we see them. And I don't even have to compare these to existing artifacts and heroic traits because you get to use these in addition. So these would only be given to monsters, which, let me take a quick look to make sure I'm on the same page. That would be on non-unique monsters, of course. So that would be the Abhorrant Ghoul King on Royal Terrorgeist or Zombie Dragon as it currently exists. So that's 2 options. And then you're getting it on, I don't think the Vargolf Courtier is a monster. I'll double check that. No, he's infantry. And then that you'd be getting it on the 2 versions of those dragons that are not ridden by heroes. Okay, so let's see what you can do. Revered Monstrosity. Add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made with companion weapons by other friendly, non-unique Flesh Eater Courts monsters while they are wholly within 12 inches of the use unit. Okay, so we're basically going back in the direction of Monster Mash with these guys. I never got to play my buddy Johnny from Team Ireland, but he was running a kind of feck Monster Mash list at Worlds with the team this year. He was my one of my opponents last time, and we got a little chance to hang out. But I'm curious what he thinks about this. But obviously, whoever's carrying this doesn't get to use it themselves. That's kind of interesting. You'd think you'd want it to be on at least the mount, because how many monsters are you realistically bringing? So he's not even benefiting himself. If this could go on any hero and wasn't a monster's trait, I mean, I guess it's nice that at least you don't have to give him an artifact or heroic trait for this. And adding hit rolls to the combat attacks is interesting because if you're taking the hero version, if I'm not mistaken, the hero that's riding the Royal Zombie Dragon or Terrorgeist isn't horrible. And then they're not getting the +1 to hit for combat attacks unless you do an alt attack. But then the beast would get it as well. So I guess the ideal build for this, that's the most efficient, is you take this on any one of those monsters, and then you bring it along with a certain number of other monsters that are getting the +1 to hit, and they are hanging out around each other wholly within 12. I got mixed feelings about that one too. All right, Savage Abomination. Add 1 to the attacks characteristic of this unit's companion melee weapons. Okay, so you're not going to get both of these. So you're choosing either to buff other ones with +1 to hit, or you're adding +1 attacks with this unit's companion's melee weapons. But let's talk about that real quick. So if I'm assuming the Royal Terrorgeist, the actual companion weapons are the same on the hero and monster versions. If I'm wrong, let me know. But looking at a Royal Terrorgeist, we've got the Maw is 3 attacks, so we're going up 33% by adding 1. And the Skeletal Talons is 6 attacks, so we're only going up by 1/6, so 17% or so. And then if I look at the Royal Zombie Dragon, we got 7 attacks on the Draconic Claws, so it's only going up by 1/7 now. And Draconic Maw is going up by, it has 3 attacks, so it's going up 33%. Is this good? I don't know. I don't know. But, you know, it's flavorful and it's free as long as you're taking one of these monsters. So that's kind of neat. And then the last one, end of any turn. I like to see that, any turn. Heal D3 this unit. If this unit is not a hero, heal 2D3 instead. So it's keeping those non-hero versions, which have a 4-up save and 14 health, alive a little bit longer. I don't know if there's anything I really need to know about those units on their War Scrolls in particular to say whether I like these things all that much. I think these are nice to get a free extra enhancement, and I'm really glad to see Monstrous traits back. But I think these are more just kind of like icing on the cake rather than the main event. In fact, I don't know if I've seen anything on this update that looks like it's changing the whole way you play. Maybe this Serfs thing, in retrospect, the command ability to turn off pile moves if you're running that build. I don't know if that's actually better than the other formations. I have a feeling it's not, because if I'm not mistaken, one of the the other formations is the one that brings back an extra model every time. Yeah. And then the units here, the 2 new guys, you know, I kind of, like I said with the Gore Warden, I kind of like his current War Scroll better than this one personally, and he's a little cheaper, at least with current pricing. And though this is cool, this is like the first time I think we've seen that you can take any amount of Italics heroes with a guy. I do think that's neat. I don't know if it's actually viable. But one thing it would do, maybe I need to say this, is if a Feck list is trying to get 2 drops and you want to take Usharon, and you want to take 4 units with him because he's a War Master of like actual, like your units you're putting on the table, let's say some amount of Moorbag Knights or something, and then you want to take just a bunch of heroes, you no longer have to like worry about the number of drops because you could take this guy plus any number of Italics heroes that could go in his regiment. So that's kind of cool. And then you would get a whole bunch of heroes for just 2 drops. So maybe that's the main use for this. Maybe that's the main buff. Okay, so I'm done with Feck today. Anyone that's a pro Feck player, let me know what you're thinking about these things. Or anyone, you know, casual too. I'm really curious. Maybe people that are casual are real psyched about just this expanding your options, which I totally get. I love seeing new battle formations. I like that monstrous traits are here. I like seeing these changes, and the fact that we've had a little slightly something different every day. Skaven, we got 2 War Scrolls, plus some, if I'm not mistaken, heroic traits and 2 battle formations. Here we're seeing 2 War Scrolls as well, 2 formations, but monstrous traits instead of heroic traits. And then Stormcast, we saw no formations, but new artifacts and heroic traits, plus only 1 new unit. So let me know which one's your favorite thus far. Tomorrow, the hint was that we're going to be seeing Gits. So excited to see that. And yeah, until I get the next video out with all my thoughts about Worlds, or tomorrow's video, until next time, guys, Ryan out.